So every show has its issues. I think we can all agree on that. Whether you're a fan of the multiple Arrowverse shows or the DC Universe shows, just about every single one of us could probably point out flaws in the shows that we love. Some fans being more critical than others, of course, but ultimately we choose to keep watching these shows usually because the good outweighs the bad. And since we are a fan of the core of whatever show we're watching, we root for it to improve and get better. I mean, up until a point, that is. And Titans has been a show that I've enjoyed quite a lot in both of its seasons, but it has also been quite criticized from some fans to the point of where they've even walked away from the show, or some who just continue to tune in but struggle to even watch. But if that's how some fans feel, then why do I still really enjoy what Titans is doing despite the issues that drive some fans away? Today I want to explore the reasons why I really enjoy Titans on DC Universe, and why I think regardless of what people feel, it does take a step down a road that makes me enjoy it a lot more than some of the other superhero shows we have available. I mean, of course guys, I definitely want to mention this is ultimately subjective. Every DC Comics fan will always have a variety of feelings differing from person to person, but I want to try and bring in a few objective points into it at the same time. I'll be comparing Titans to the Arrowverse just for argument's sake, and to give a little bit of reasoning as to why I feel the way I do, but there's definitely no digs or attacks intended on any fandom here. So right off the bat, if I think back to when Titans was first revealed, we had those teasers for Dick Grayson in the Robin suit, which gave the majority of fans a very good impression of the aesthetic of the show, and then eventually we were given the first trailer at Comic-Con, and despite that causing quite a division between various fans, with some claiming that Robin was actually killing the thugs in that alleyway scene, or this isn't Dick Grayson I know from the comics, or just he would never say "fuck Batman." But for me, the tone of that trailer is what really got me excited for this show. Beyond the initial excitement of just, having a live action show that's centered around the Titans with characters such as Robin, Jason Todd, Beast Boy, and the others. Also, there was a reason behind Dick Grayson's disdain for Batman, which was explored well throughout the first couple of seasons, which, really isn't a far cry from the comics. But, the fandoms these days, we hate every Batsuit that comes out until the movie comes out. Well, maybe not me, but a lot of fans do. You get what I mean. It's inevitable for a lot of things. Also, another big thing for me with that tease of the show through the promotional material that we got at the time is that it massively separated itself from the tone of the Arrowverse. I mean, on a whole new level even, of which for the longest time, the Arrowverse has held dominion, if you could say, over the comic book TV world for DC. I mean, of course, there are other comic book shows, but for many years we've been used to the teenage-oriented, if you will, Arrowverse from the CW, with little to no other outlet for something different. And seriously, just no. For those who say that Titans is like an edgy Arrowverse show with swearing and that's all that separates the two, it's just, I have no idea what those people are smoking, because for me, there's a massive change in the way DC Universe shows such as Titans or Doom Patrol is portrayed to audiences compared to that of any Arrowverse show. And even though I still really enjoy the Arrowverse, you can probably tell that I'm into a lot more of the adult tone of comic book shows, of which that DC Universe's Titans and Doom Patrol are blatantly intended for. So the fact that we're getting a lot more of a gritty comic book show that wasn't as cheesy as the Arrowverse can often be, with really interesting characters that we haven't even seen in live action on TV in like a really long time, some never even having debuted in the show before, well, you could say my hype levels going in were beaming. But of course, to be completely fair, as per the title of this video, Titans has had its issues. I mean, one common criticism is that the writing of the show over the course of the 2 seasons has felt as though the writers' room have had so many ideas and plot points that they wanted to implement, which is combined with the numerous characters on the show, that just sometimes it came across as a bit disjointed. And at times, when there is focus on a certain character, for example, Dick Grayson, other characters almost feel entirely neglected neglected at times or feel underutilized to the point of where audience members may really enjoy them. For example, Deathstroke in Season 2, in which S.I. Morales was absolutely incredible. However, just over halfway throughout the season, his lack of appearance just made it seem that he disappeared for a period of time, or just the really well casted characters and actors on the show are underutilized and should be capitalized on a lot more than what they have been. And this same thing applies to Hawk and Dove in Season 2, two characters of which I've professed to be my favorite in the whole show from their introduction in Season 1, and their plot in Season 2 left me and many others feeling as though they were just there for kind of no particular reason, despite having a story. Or another one, many fans want to see a lot more Beast Boy, of who never really gets to see much screen time. And as a result of what I've already spoken about, it kind of makes the pacing of the show for many fans seem a little bit off. But this is where, for me personally, I somewhat have my feet in both sides of the court, because I really like the fact that we have a lot fewer episodes than that of the Arrowverse shows, which usually consist of 22 episodes a season. But at the same time, I completely acknowledge the disadvantages of Titans having shorter seasons, of that along with the advantages, which I think is what makes the show a difficult task at times for the writers' room when planning out the season, to where you have to try and make every character and episode feel utilized, without giving off impressions of episodes that are rushed or plot points feeling left empty. However though guys, on the CW side of things, 22 episodes in my opinion is way too many episodes. But believe it or not, when I was like 17, 18, 19, I can't really remember, I thought the complete opposite. Sometimes when I'm watching my favorite CW shows like The Flash over many years now and other Arrowverse shows, some episodes are a complete waste and such filler to the point of where you wonder why you even bothered tuning in. And this repeats several times throughout the season. And that's one of the other core aspects of what really makes me like Titans despite its issues, is that fewer episodes, despite the issues that introduces, if not written well enough, means more main plot focused episodes each and every episode, with little to no filler at all. And I find that so much more engaging when paired with all of the other aspects I value about this show. However though, to remedy the issues I very briefly went over above, with Titans being a bit all over the place at times, despite me preferring the shorter seasons, of which is 13 episodes, even though season 1 had 11, it was meant to have 13. I think if they cranked it up to 15 episodes like Doom Patrol, it would allow the writers to address the concerns that fans have about the two seasons. However, given 22 episodes, then yeah, I mean, there would definitely be mindless filler like the CW shows so often give us, which at the very best of times in those episodes just kind of leave me feeling like, meh, it was alright. But let's not get started at how rushed that Titans Season 2 finale was, along with the very nonsensical death of Donna Troy. I mean, sure, Connor Leslie will be returning to Titans, but I think we can all agree that any other death, or me making one up on the spot right now where Deathstroke ends up killing Donna Troy, which would have been a mirror of what he did to Aqualad 4 years prior, would have felt a lot more tragic, poetic, and thus a better ending than what we saw go down. Or not to mention how during Season 1, Trigon was set up to be this overarching villain, only to have the true Season 1 finale in the Season 2 premiere. I mean, trust me, I acknowledge this show's downfalls, and the CGI could also be a lot better. But then again, CGI on all TV shows, and especially what I've seen on the CW, can be very questionable at times, but of course, there's definitely room for a lot of improvement there on Titans. But still, as I started with this video, we all know shows have various issues, yet we continue to watch them because for me, what Titans does really well does outweigh the aspects that lets the show down, because the aesthetic of the show and the costume design is just some of the best I've seen on TV. Whether that's Hawk and Dove's costume being fantastic, I mean, I've already mentioned how mostly everyone thought that the Robin suit looked incredible when it was first teased in that poster, and all other Titans superhero suits are fantastic, with more to come down the line for sure. Not to mention the stunt work in this show. I mean, sure, sometimes it's been a bit choppy, but for the most part, it's remarkable and really, really well filmed, and the choreography from the stunt team on Titans is something to applaud. The locations are often so on point, one example just being how Gotham feels more like Gotham than Batwoman on the CW could probably ever pull off, and honestly, that's not a dig. It's just honestly what I feel is the plain as day truth. I mean, just compare both of them, and I don't know. It's just, yeah. The cinematography for me, and this isn't unique to Titans on DC Universe, it's just a huge step up from the formulaic way the CW goes about filming their shows. And as I've already said, I am a big fan of the CW shows, and still am, as I've been on this journey with those characters for many years, and I really want the shows to succeed. But I just feel like this is where there's another stark contrast between the Arrowverse and Titans that sucks me in, and as a result really enjoy the show despite those irritating issues that Titans has. It just feels that the DC Universe shows have a lot more quality that I really appreciate, mixed in with a really impressive production, the dark and more adult tone, and not to mention the very well casted characters. When all of that is in a pot with the characters I didn't expect to see in a live action show anytime soon when it first came out, then you definitely have a show that is more up my alley than a very long dragged out CW season. And despite all of the issues I mentioned with Titans' narrative at times, I still really like the story that they've told. Even though we were originally meant to get Nightwing by the end of season 1, which is just kind of crazy when you think about it, I feel like the evolution of Dick Grayson into Nightwing over the course of 2 seasons was pretty good. Despite the show being called Titans, I think there's quite a misconception about how it's meant to be perceived with the journey and narrative the writers intended. And I think it gets a bit too much hate, to be honest, for the name of the show and the digs that people throw at it. I mean, if I was to reverse that situation, would I call The Flash on the CW Star Labs and Friends featuring The Flash for its complete, utter, and lack of capitalization on the main character? Season 1 saw the Titans find each other, and Season 2 was about those characters coming together up until the point of where it even concluded with a very satisfying scene of the Titans ready to be that superhero force in Season 3. And I totally understand why it took that long to get to that point. All of the story leading up to that point was very relevant. I mean, I can just imagine it. If Nightwing would have just randomly appeared in season 1, or these new characters having met each other for only a short amount of time, and then they were just already kicking ass in the week-to-week CW formulaic villain kind of way, then there would be a whole load of criticism of how rushed that would have been with lack of any development of the characters, which just kind of reminds me of what some other shows actually go ahead and do. I also just really enjoy the more gritty and in-depth story focused and less filler oriented episodes that Titans has given us, especially with the way the show over the course of the 2 seasons has weaved in the past. That was one of the huge factors of Titans for me that I really enjoyed. In season 1 we had the flashbacks of Dick Grayson and his past with Batman and how they were weaved into present day along with the original Titans, and season 2 weighed in heavily on that with the tragedy of the past with Deathstroke, Jericho, and Aqualad. I just love this way of storytelling, and I feel like it only served for a better season versus something like Deathstroke just meeting all of the characters in present day for the first time, causing trouble in San Francisco, and they just decide to go out and stop him. I mean, the version we got held a lot more weight for the Titans and allowed us to explore the psyche of those characters. This allowed me to be a lot more into the show over what something like The Flash hasn't really been able to do for me for quite some time. I mean, honestly, these aren't digs, it's just me honestly comparing them. I was really feeling for Jason Todd this season in season 2 and his turmoil and struggle with Hank and Dawn or Hawk and Dove. Despite the lack of purpose in season 2, at least Titans gives a struggle for these characters, such as Hank and his struggle with addiction and how that ties to his life of being a vigilante, Donna Troy's heartbreak with Aqualad layered her past with Deathstroke and just any association with the Titans to such a deep level, and Dick Grayson and his guilt over Jericho in the past and his desire to be better and confront his dark past was just truly an arc that allowed for an intriguing transformation. Whereas these days on The Flash, there has certainly been dramatic storylines that have really made me engaged in the show in previous seasons, but a lot of time these days, I really feel like I lack this emotional connection and even care for the storylines at hand. Or if they were to tackle something that should have had a long development or arc to it, it's just resolved by the end of that episode or the very next episode very conveniently. And somehow, despite having 22 episodes, they just don't seem to accomplish character development very well compared to that of something like Titans, or more accurately, how Doom Patrol just masters that. But hey, this isn't a Doom Patrol video, but if you haven't seen it, go watch it. You have to. Things often on CW shows also don't really feel serious enough for me. They often don't also take themselves too seriously either in terms of tone, and they've definitely addressed that a lot more in recent seasons compared to a season like The Flash season 4, but the CW shows do still give off this quirky and cheesy vibe very deliberately for the most part episode to episode. But when they do tackle serious and dramatic episodes, I do admit, of course, they definitely kill it in a good way. I also don't often feel fully intimidated, or should I say engrossed, by a villain such as Cicada or even Bloodwork. Even though I enjoyed Bloodwork, it's just in comparison to the sheer presence of like S.I. Morales' Deathstroke, who just smashed through the screen. Don't get me wrong though, The Flash has done this extremely well with Zoom in the past, the Reverse Flash. Those were like the golden age storylines of the show, but I find that these days with CW shows, I just really miss those gritty and the stakes are high villains that would bring out the best performances by the actors and engagement in the story. But that's honestly just me anyway with these points, guys. Hence the subjective experience with both sides of these universes. Some of you may find Bloodwork more thrilling than Deathstroke on Titans, but for me, it just doesn't even remotely compare. Not to even mention the forgettable villains of the week that we're given. It just doesn't scream quality to me versus the castings of a show like Titans that always makes you feel like that character means business when they're on screen. So ultimately, guys, Titans has had plenty of issues for sure, but are those issues enough for me to be put off the show for good? That's a hard no. Overall, I really enjoy the world, the tone, the characters, and the R-rated version of these worlds that we're given, with a much more to the point story-focused season that, while that can be to its detriment, it does leave me really engaged week to week. Sure, not every episode hits the nail on the head, but compared to the 22 episodes that I get from CW seasons, there's a lot more bland feelings week to week for me with those shows. But honestly, guys, as I said, and as I've kept saying, this is subjective, so I would love to know your opinions on this down in the comments below. I know there's so many people on both sides of the fence with this, but if you do really like Titans, I would love to hear why you really enjoy it despite the issues that it has. Or if you really don't like it, why don't you? But other than that, everyone, I would really appreciate it if you enjoyed this video, especially if you got to this point. Click the like button, subscribe for more videos like this and updates on Titans and, just even the CW shows. Also, just a very quick plug, I do have a Discord server that you can join in the description or top pin comment down below. In the off season of Titans, if you're a huge Titans fan, that is where you want to be. We have a big community there for Titans, so I'd love to speak about Titans with you personally there. I join the voice chat quite a bit. Other than that, just check out my social media. You can support me more on Patreon. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Titans in the next video. Goodbye.